I saw some tweets where he was throwing the ideas out on Twitter, and people were like, "Hey, that's not a good idea." He was like, "How about $8 a month, bro? You cannot freestyle business ideas on Twitter." You know what I'm saying?
It's just
For
kind of
Twitter,
crazy
on Twitter,
because
for Twitter.
On Twitter for Twitter.
it's just so crazy that he's so rich that Twitter is his small side hustle.
All right, guys, I got a good one for you this week. So I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but it's been really big on Twitter. So Eli Lilly has been one of the casualties of what people are calling the Twitter blues, right?
Nobody's calling it that. Nobody's calling it that. You're calling it that.
No, I think I saw an article with someone calling it the Twitter blues. So basically, long story short, here's what happens. You guys know Elon Musk took over Twitter a couple weeks ago. One of the things he instituted, one of the policies he did was that anyone can get one of those blue verified checks if they pay $8 a month for what's called Twitter Blue, right? And so then once you pay that $8 fee, you get that check, right? Your verified account, basically. So what happens with Eli Lilly is their official Twitter account is called LilyPad, okay? So someone gets the Twitter handle like Eli Lilly & Co., gets the check, pays $8 to get the check, and then tweets out, insulin is now free, right? And for those, Momo, maybe you can touch on like the reality of how much insulin costs as, you know, someone in the pharmacy space, but insulin is not free.
Insulin is definitely not free. It's pretty expensive, yeah.
How expensive, Momo?
Usually like $200, $300 without insurance, stuff like that, for like a vial, for like a month's supply.
Yeah. So now this basically, this tweet picked up, like it went viral basically, and people are retweeting it, sharing it, all this stuff. Like, oh my God, good news! Like Eli Lilly is saying, insulin is now free, all this stuff, right? Little do they know, this is a fake account, basically just pulling a prank. And so then what happens is, Eli Lilly's official account goes on and says, hey, actually that was a fake account. This is our real account. Nothing's actually changing to insulin, right? Then what happens is like not only Eli Lilly, but also the other brands that produce insulin. Momo, you can maybe touch on those.
It's Sanofi and Novo Nordisk.
Yeah, so all three of these companies take a nosedive in their stock price on Friday. And so I was just doing the math quickly right here. It looks like Eli Lilly got, their market cap right after this all transpired, went down about $20 billion. So a couple tweets and they're now worth $20 billion less. So pretty crazy stuff. I think there's a lot to talk about here. I think one of the things that let's start with is just this whole Twitter Blue shenanigan. I know we had mixed thoughts on what Twitter Blue and the whole concept behind it and paying $8 a month for verification. Let's start with that. Muhammad, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? I think they took it down now, right?
Yeah, I think it's no. I
thought it was still up. They took it down.
I'm pretty sure for temporarily it's down.
They're gonna have to keep it down for a good minute.
Yeah, until they figure something out.
Figure it out.
I thought it was. I mean, like from a revenue perspective, I thought it was pretty smart. Where you're immediately making money from users, right? Like if you ask a lot of people, right, or you ask your mom or your dad, they're like, how does Twitter make money? How does Facebook make money? And they don't understand because it's free, right? And they don't understand like that it makes money off of ads. But then when you add this other aspect to it, it's like this whole other source of revenue. But I was like, okay, I feel like I would pay $8 and get a blue check. But at the same time, like Cheema was saying, yeah, it loses all exclusivity. I feel like once everybody had it, I would probably stop paying. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the thing is in my mind, right? When you think of the blue check, it's like you reach a certain number of followers and you start getting impersonation accounts, and then the blue check is like, oh, this is the legit one, right? If you can just pay for, like a check, that doesn't actually make you like have a big audience or a big following or anything like that, right? All it does is like add a check to your profile, and now that it's not exclusive anymore, it's just like anyone can do it, right? So I think it's the same thing with like YouTube channels, right? The people say that the subscriber count is like a vanity metric or whatever, right? Really what matters is watch time and these things, and that's true. But at the same time, like there's so many like imposter accounts on YouTube, like Mr. Beast 2, Mr. Beast 3, Mr. Beast like real, all this stuff. And then how do you know which one's real? You have that little check, and then you also see the number of subscribers on that channel.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you see 100 million subscribers, it's like, okay, that's a legit Mr. Beast. That's the one, not just like some random kid in some other country taking remixes of the videos and reposting them. You know what I mean? And then commenting on other Mr. Beast videos. Hey, check out my channel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the one piece of it, is like, especially like coming back to the brand builders, entrepreneurs, and that kind of thing, is if you have a product and you can create this source of exclusivity. Like, Mohammed, I think we talked about this on maybe one of the episodes you were on, or maybe we didn't talk about it, but like, if you remember when Apple released their iPod, like, what color were their headphones?
White.
Actually, this is a good example right now. If you're watching on YouTube, like, Momo, what color are your headphones? Like the wire.
The wire is black.
Yeah. Mohammed, are yours Apple, or are they?
No, I've got Sony's.
Sony's. Oh, bro, I know the Sony's. Those are Sony's for sure.
Yeah, XM4s, yeah.
XM4s,
at the time, like, when they did this, Apple was the only one to actually have white headphone wires, right? And everyone else was like standard black. And so that made it so that, like, anytime you saw these white headphone wires, it was like, oh, that's an Apple iPod, right? And then if you remember the iconic ads at the time with the silhouettes, iconic
ads,
and all you have is like those wires, the white little wires. It's just like, man, it just kind of imprints that in your mind, is like, look, Apple is exclusive, right? And you're different, that kind of thing. So
they got me as a 12-year-old with that. I remember.
Yeah, I think like with it, I think for me it's surprising, like Musk being someone who has somewhat like this larger than life personal brand that he does, where he can literally just do whatever he wants. Like, the Boring Company.
What's interesting though is that also working at a social media company, there is a security aspect to this, where I know that companies are having conversations to create something alongside a blue check mark, whether it is a blue check mark or not, to know who's real and who's not. Because it may just be like, even if it's not a blue check mark, it's not a bot, right? And so if you can know that this is at least a real person, and then you have people who are verified or whatever later on, but creating some sort of, even if he starts at $8 and everybody buys in because they're like, oh, I got a blue check mark, but it's just a really easy way to get people signed on to the fact, and then making it free later, right? But now you just have a bunch of people who are on this platform who are not bots. And from a security perspective, it's kind of brilliant.
That's a good point, because I remember, I don't know the details behind the whole Elon Musk Twitter. I think one of the reasons he said he was trying to get out of the whole Twitter deal was because of the bots, right?
Was because of the bots, yeah.
And
I get it from a verification perspective, but I feel like to even get more buy-in from people, they would have had to have a genuine value added from that blue check, besides it being just a blue check. Like, hey, you're paying $8 a month, right? There should be like features added, like, for example, like LinkedIn Premium, when you pay that $30 a month, right? $40? Yeah, see, that's why I was on the free trial that I stopped. But but when you pay that extra premium, there's genuine useful features that come with it. Oh, you'd be good for this job. Oh, who looked at your profile? Who did this? Twitter, but Elon was like $8, you get a blue check. And you know what I'm saying? And like that is a commodity, like, like when I was on Twitter, like if you sell a blue check as a verification for authenticity, or like, oh, what is this person doing to have a blue check? I remember one account that had a blue check that I was like, what? It was like Uber Facts. It was like some random account that just had tweeted facts, random interesting facts out, but they have a blue check. But apparently they had a bunch of impersonators, and that's why their account got the blue check, right? So it was always like a point of intrigue and a point of like, okay, what is this person doing that they're verified on Twitter? Like even comedians and TV personalities, when they get verified, it's like a certain level of I made it. When you open that up for like open access, $8 a month, I can afford $8 a month. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody, really, it's cheaper than Netflix. You know what I'm saying? If I was really budgeting, I'd decrease my Netflix and get on Twitter.
No, what happens though, I think what you're highlighting is that the actual day-to-day use changes, right? It goes from like the actual business model goes from like you're using for free. Now, if you want the actual legit Twitter, basically is what you're saying, like without bots, then you need to pay $8 a month to use it, right? And so I think, like, to Momo's point, you got to add some other value because people are used to using this at the free tier.
Yeah, but that's not the selling point. The selling point is not, oh, it's a security thing. Oh, it's going to be something that you're going to use without bots. The selling point is initially is exclusivity, because early on there you'll be the one who has a blue check and your friends don't, because you're going to be the first one to do it. And then people will carry on. That's why I said, I was like, when everybody starts getting a blue check, I'll probably stop paying, because eventually then everybody will have a blue check. And at that point, I feel like you make it free.
Yeah,
And
but
you accomplish what you needed. You have a secure platform.
why wouldn't you just make it free from the onset?
You
From
just
the
made a bunch
jump,
of
yeah.
money. You just made a bunch of money, and you're not incentivizing anyone to make it, to like buy in. But now you're selling exclusivity, right? Exclusivity sells, and anybody who jumps onto this first, and people then see other people doing it, they're just going to start. I feel like it's just people do what other people do, and because it's going to start out as an exclusive thing, at least for the first 6 months or even a year, people I think will buy into it. It's not something that can last, I don't think.
Interesting. The other thing, I know we want to talk about a couple of things. One of the things I want to talk about is just like Elon Musk as a brand builder, right? Like he has this massive personal brand. He's built the most valuable company in the world. Not the most valuable company in the world, but one of the most valuable companies in the world in Tesla. Right? We have SpaceX, we have Boring Company, we have a bunch of these other. He's been a part of PayPal, right? So he's been a serial entrepreneur and he's done these things. I think what's surprising is that, um, he. It seems like he tried to do too much all at once, and I mean, I think we know that that's a recipe for uh, not success, right? I think in some scenarios it can work, but in general, like literally, I think he changed way too much at the same time, and they just weren't able to react to the changes in time, right? And so that's why we have, Eli Lilly's probably pretty upset with this whole thing because of
Yeah.
just these massive sudden changes, right?
This honestly, there's a few problems with it. Even the whole saga when he was buying Twitter, it seems so unprofessional. You know what I'm saying? Just from a professionalism standpoint, I'm like, how is this man got 44 billion? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
just to flex on spend on Twitter like that, and then he's tweeting, "Oh, we're gonna do this to Twitter. We're gonna do this to Twitter." It's basically like, oh, like it's like he was talking trash about what he like basically what he's gonna do. Like, it's like when you're playing with somebody in basketball, like, hey man, I'm about to cross you up, get to the court. They just get to the court and they're playing like trash. He got all the gear, he got everything, and it was just like it was too unprofessional and too like, oh, I'm buying Twitter, I'm not buying Twitter. Too many bots, not enough bots. Oh, you're gonna have to buy Twitter. The whole saga was crazy, and then when he came on, and the sudden changes, I thought he was gonna let it stew for a bit. You know what I'm saying? At least be there for like a little bit. Like, okay, Elon bought Twitter. Nothing's gonna change for the time being. We're working on changes. He came in, half the company fired, right?
Right.
Off the jump. Like half. Some people were like, "Ah, nah, I'm just gonna leave." And then he puts out this, blue check system. He's like, I'm gonna get money to Twitter immediately. Immediately backfire, right? And the
Right.
biggest problem is we've talked about this on previous episodes, Cheema, the problem of litigation now. You know what I'm saying? There's a genuine possible lawsuit that could happen from Twitter allowing this misuse of their platform to make almost everything seem authentic, right? There could be a genuine lawsuit at Twitter, and Twitter, I would imagine, does not have the money right now for a major lawsuit. You know what I'm saying? So it was just in terms of that branding, it was too quick, too sudden, too abrupt, and too I would say like Elonish. I would say like it's expected, but like you don't expect that from a company. He's
Yeah, but
go ahead.
it's almost not Elonish in the sense that, like, in this, he does this with his personal life, but he usually doesn't do business. Like, he knows how to run smart business.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, all of this seemed like an ego move. Like, he came in and he's like, I'm going to make change right away. Like, somebody who knows business and who's developed successful companies understands that there's a change management process, right?
Yeah,
He knows
yeah.
this. And it
Yeah.
just seemed like it was such an ego move to be like, I know better. I'm going to do this immediately. I don't have to think about making changes. I'm just going to make changes. And all of it was just about him. And I feel like from the entirety of his presence on Twitter is so ego driven. Like everything about Elon and Twitter is synonymous with ego. Like all the
Yeah.
all the Dogecoin stuff, all of the stuff where he says like I can adjust the value of all of these stocks, all of this crypto. Like all anytime he tweeted, it was just like I just felt like he was stroking his ego this entire time, and I feel like that's
Yeah.
just what he associates that with.
And to your point, I think what was conflated, right? You said he runs smart businesses, right? It's almost like this wasn't about business. It was
Yeah,
his actual, like his personality. This was a personal branding move almost,
yeah,
because it
yeah,
wasn't like, oh, Tesla was involved. It wasn't PayPal. It wasn't a company, right? Usually when his work, in working in those companies, whatever, he's making smart, slow moves. Tesla still makes wild promises that they don't deliver on, but not as much as, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna get rid of all the bots, we're gonna provide revenue right away. I saw some tweets where he was throwing the ideas out on Twitter, and people were like, "Hey, that's not a good idea." He was like, "How about $8 a month, bro? You cannot freestyle business ideas on Twitter." You know what I'm saying?
it's just
For
kind of
Twitter,
crazy
on Twitter,
because
for Twitter.
On Twitter for Twitter.
it's just so crazy that he's so rich that Twitter is his small side hustle that he doesn't.
Right.
That is insane. I didn't even think about it like that, but it's insane that he's like, yeah, I'll just pick up on this side. 44 billion.
Yeah,
Hey, it'd be like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He can legit, if he wants to, just be like, nah, Twitter's over. Shut it down.
Let's just shut it down. Yeah, exactly.
Shut it down. Yeah, that's crazy.
It didn't work out. Twitter is his Falcon notes.
Wait,
Hey,
No, I'm not saying shutting down. I'm saying it's his side hustle.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Jab's taken, but okay.
It felt like a jab. It definitely felt like a jab.
No, we're messing. So I think one thing that Momo we talked about quite a bit is just the ignorance that piece, right? So like, I think with any business that you kind of take over, like let's say if we're doing an acquisition, and especially if like we haven't built businesses in that space. So Elon's, while he's built businesses, right? He's built businesses in various domains, right? He has a lot of business experience. He hasn't built like a social media platform, right? And so there's a debt of ignorance that he has to pay, even though he's been a user and he's been an active user, he still has a debt of ignorance to pay in terms of running a social media platform. And right, when you go in, you make these sweeping changes, right? Like a lot of times it could be like, like you try these things and it's like, yeah, that's the reason we didn't try this is because XYZ. And had you just like taking the time to listen and understand and really get a feel for the operation before you start making changes, you don't run into those issues. But yeah, like Mohammed, I think coming back to what you're saying, I think it really does seem like it's stemming off this ego thing where like he already feels like he knows how to run it better than everyone else, and so he's just going to make changes based on what he feels like doing, right? So
and here's the thing with that approach, it's a double-edged sword, right? On one side, all right, man, okay, if you really love using Twitter, like, oh my god, I don't know what this guy is about to do, I don't know what's gonna happen, I really like using Twitter, what's gonna change, right? From another side, like as me, like I'm not a Twitter user, there's almost an excitement. Okay, like what is he gonna do? Am I coming back to Twitter? Am I gonna use it again? Like, what could he do to get people back on Twitter or get more revenue from Twitter? There's an exciting aspect. Like, I want to see it. I want to see what happens, but it doesn't look like it's gonna be good. It doesn't feel like it's gonna be good, Yeah. But I'm still there. I want to still see it, and I think from like his personal brand, it definitely adds to his personal brand. Is okay, founder of Tesla, PayPal, all of those things, and a large majority stakeholder of Twitter. It's like definitely adds to his own name and builds his personal brand. But yeah, from just like a business perspective, I can't see how he's gonna turn it around.
Yeah, I think let's discuss a little bit on the Eli Lilly side of things. Like, is there anything that they could have done to react to this whole situation and not lose $20 billion of market cap?
No, there's nothing, honestly. And even if you look at their company's tweets, they're like, "We are sorry, patients are getting misinformation." You know what I'm saying? It was worded very carefully because they're not gonna come out and be like, "Hey, look, insulin is not free and it's never gonna be free." You know what I'm saying? They're not gonna come out and say that after their market cap went down $20 billion, right? So they're gonna be very careful about what they say. They're gonna be like, we're taking appropriate action to stop the spreading of misinformation about our company. Point blank period. really sorry that this has happened, and our customers are getting inaccurate information. But they're not gonna say, oh, this is almost like the Dave Chappelle, the infamous, him going off in Detroit. Like people were yelling, "We want our money back! We want our money back!" And that's when he woke up. He's like, "Listen here, city of Detroit, you will never get your money back." You know what I'm saying? Like, basically, that's what Eli Lilly was saying. Like, hey, look, it's never gonna be free. But they didn't want. Obviously, they didn't say it like that. They had to be very, very careful. Like whoever worded their tweets and their response
verbiage.
was very calculated in their verbiage. So that's really the best thing they could have done.
But
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm saying like two things though, right? Like at the end of the day, the question is, could they have done anything to salvage not losing $20 billion in market cap? But the other thing is, does it matter? Right? Like, does it really matter that that's happened to them? Because in the sense that, they lost like 6%, right? 6% in their stock price. Will that probably be back in like 2 weeks to a month? Like, and everybody will forget this ever happened. And like, while it's somewhat of a brand dent, right? I don't know. I don't think it matters that much, right? Like Momo said, it's a commodity that is needed. It's a life-saving medicine, and it's fairly exclusive, and like people will need it, and they're going to continue to pay whatever the price is.
Yeah. So to that point, right? Like, I guess the discussion we can have here is that, like, let's say you have a brand or a company that provides a service or a product that is deemed necessary or like essential to life, right? And you're making a pretty high margin on it. Anytime that comes to light, people are naturally going to be upset about it, right? So if you're a brand builder or you're the person calling the shots here, what's the right thing to do to preserve your brand in the long run?
Honestly, yeah, the really you can't really they can't go down on the price, right? They can't change much about that. Is my mic sound good, by the way?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, but they can't really change much on the price. They can't change, like how insulin is given. Really, what the best thing they could do is respond quickly and timely, like we've said, in terms of managing, like disasters like this. Respond quickly and promptly and address the situation head on. But from a marketing perspective and a branding perspective, really like they can come out with like some statistics, because a lot of the money that the cost of insulin goes towards insurance, goes towards kickbacks, rebates, all those things to cover what the actual patient pays for, right? With insurance and a lot of things, most people are not paying that full price of insulin. So they can come out with stats and say like, okay, our insulin actually doesn't cost this much. This how much it costs in comparison, and all those things. But besides that, I mean, this is just really on Twitter. It wasn't their fault. Like Eli Lilly was minding their business, got shot, took some L's on Twitter over the weekend, and their stock price went down.
Collateral damage.
Just collateral damage.
No, I think Momo, you bring up a really good point. Is that like if misinformation is coming out like this, or like according to Eli Lilly, it's misinformation, right? Like I know this is a hot topic. And we're not trying to get canceled or anything right here. We're just talking about general principles for branding. And so I think one of the things, Momo, you're highlighting is what you should do is just highlight where the money's actually going, right? Let's say you're a business and you need that margin to do these other things, right? A good move to do is if people are calling out your high margins, call out where the margins is going and be transparent with that to earn the trust back with your audience.
Go into the CEO's pockets. What do you mean? They're not going to be transparent about that.
Yeah. No, but so basically, for corporations and large corporations, probably it's best to just be like, oh, Twitter, you need to fix your misinformation thing. But for like small businesses and the people that are listening to us, like most likely you're not just making millions of dollars for your CEO. So
100%. Yeah.
I'm assuming you guys have some like actual expenses and stuff that.
No. I'll tell you a good example of it. It's like, have you ever seen I'm sure all of us have friends or people you see on Facebook, people that you do from high school or whatever, selling shirts or selling merch, and they're like, bro, charging $50 a hoodie. I'm like, bro, this is printed off colorway or whatever that was like, you know what I'm saying? Why am I gonna pay $50 for that hoodie, right? Yeah. Then in that case, you can explain like, okay, look, it costs us this much to do that. And, we're trying to make this, we make only this much profit and a small percentage goes towards donation or towards this good cause. getting a hoodie for like like some kids in Africa are not going to use hoodie, but I don't know, like getting a hoodie for like somebody who's disenfranchised.
Right, yeah.
If you like explain that, then that makes me more willing to spend that $50. You know what I'm saying? But like if you're just charging $50 for a generic hoodie,
I don't know that people have to explain that, and I don't know that I like that.
You don't.
then you don't. But if people are calling you out for specifically for your high margins, right?
Fair. Okay.
Like if that's the feedback you're getting, then the older response is, look, I get it seems high, but it's really not, and here's why.
Yeah, and then I think
is?
there's a couple brands that do this kind of thing where they're like their whole brand is built on this level of transparency. I can't think of the names right now, but basically what they do is like they like you can say X% goes back into operations and
Doesn't Patagonia do this?
I don't know about Patagonia, but there's a clothing brand that does it, right? And they say like, hey, this is how much our actual cost for the product costs. This is how much we're spending on marketing, all this stuff. And so what that does is like, even it doesn't like you said, one of the tactics people use is like we donate X% to charity, all that stuff. You don't even have to donate to charity. Even just having the transparency to say this is what margin we're making at the end of the day will be enough, in my opinion, to build some trust with your audience. They know where the money is going at least, right? And so I think that's one of the powerful tactics you can use to build trust with your audience if you're in a space where there is a lack of trust, right? So definitely, like, you don't want to just I wouldn't recommend just start going and saying where you're spending all your money and stuff. If you're in a space where that doesn't really, people are not, valuing that. But if you're in a space like, for example, like high-end clothing, where like these, for example, these, me and Mom are wearing the same glasses, right? We probably got them for like $20, right?
Yeah, Zenny on Amazon. Yep.
Yeah. It probably cost these people like $2 to make it and all that stuff, and then the same stuff like Gucci or whatever is selling for like $300, right? And so if you're in this space, I think it can go a long way to just be like, hey, this is how much margin we're making and all that stuff, just so you can say, hey, this is the same actual quality product that you're getting in these high-end brands, but we're taking this much less margin, right? And then that can earn your trust. But again, like, it's not for everyone, and I don't think everyone should do it, but it is a tactic you can use to build trust with your audience. Any other thoughts before we close, guys?
Yeah, speaking of trust, I just want to, and this could be a whole separate episode about specifically branding for pharmaceutical companies or medical companies, right? There's a lot of trust, right? Anytime, I tell people, I'm a pharmacy or I'm a pharmacist or whatever, big pharma, you're working for big pharma, do this. And there's a lot of mistrust, right? Specifically around pharmaceutical companies, how much their medications cost and things like that. So, speaking to your point, I think it would go a long way to build that trust by being transparent, right? By being like, okay, this is how much it costs us to make, this is how much we're spending on things, et cetera, et cetera. And also by just, realizing that like pharmaceuticals and medical supplies and things like that, they're not necessarily a traditional commodity, whereas in the sense like who you're marketing to is who's buying. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, the buyers are really going to be the people who buy in are the doctors that are going to be writing the prescriptions or recommending these things to their patients, and then insurance companies that are going to cover them, right? So that's really the branding that you're going to. So it's a whole other field of like, okay, how to market, who's actually my consumer. The end user is going to be the patient, right? But who's actually putting money for my product, right? So then it becomes a whole nother field of branding, marketing, reach out, all those things. It switches up the entire game, and trust plays a huge factor because the general public has a general mistrust pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week with the Gen Zers generally having this mistrust, and they place a big value on transparency and authenticity, right? Yeah. And so as we see more and more Gen Zers needing to buy from big pharma, I think one of the ways to really position, I guess, like, you don't really have as much control with big pharma because it's just the doctor prescribes it and you take it, so maybe they don't need to. But no.
It is actually, if you notice, specifically with Gen Z patients in general, there's like a general trend. I haven't really seen data, but there's way more patient autonomy involved with the younger generations, right?
Really?
Me and you, I know when I go to the doctor, I'm like, all right, man, what is he gonna say? Whatever, I might disagree. But he's a doctor. You know what I'm saying?
Define patient autonomy.
Like patient autonomy is like, okay, I am the patient. This is the drug that I want. I've seen a bunch of TikToks and it works for a bunch of people, and I want you to give me this drug. And patients actually do this. This is very common to go to the doctor's office. Okay, I have this issue.
I do that.
I did the self research. I don't do that really. It's like I did the self research. This is the drug I want, and you should prescribe it to me. The doctor's gonna be like, your insurance doesn't cover it. It's gonna need a bunch of steps, and then the patient will personally call their insurance. Hey, why isn't this covered? So it definitely, with this younger generation getting older, right, and needing medications, and even with this younger generation, they're using more pharmaceuticals, for example, for antidepressants and things like that. They have a large percentage of the market in using that, right? So with them being able to, like, having a lot of autonomy over the medications they take, you could see more direct-to-consumer marketing, right? That could benefit those companies as they get older, right? As those patients get older. But you're right. It is a very delicate of like, okay, like who's actually influencing, who's buying this drug, right? But I could see it in the future being a bigger impact.
If you're the one calling the shots at Eli Lilly, what do you guys do?
I don't know, man. I'd run a promotion or something.
So on the back door.
Yeah.
Because these execs that know each other and like I don't know at what media company it was, but I really do feel like Eli Lilly made some calls to some news outlets, and I was even watching. There was like this YouTube reel of this girl, and she was like, "This person is a hero, and this is awesome, and what this person did is great." And I saw the same type of format, but it was like a 1-minute news clip. And at the end of it, she was like, this was all a mistake, misinformation, whatever. Eli Lilly actually has some really good programs for people who can't afford insulin that are available to consumers. I don't think that was an accident. Like, why would, you know what I mean? Like, why would they share that? Why would that be so pro Eli Lilly? I felt like some calls were made to make.
There's definitely calls made because instead of just like this is the name, right? Because now the name Eli Lilly will be associated with the scandal. For most of like Eli Lilly's like history that I've known of in my young life, I've only seen them they didn't get their earnings up. They had that's like it wasn't. They're not hitting news cycles for negative things,
Twitter.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not on Twitter. Nobody's tweeting at Eli Lilly, hey, you guys suck for this. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's doing that, right?
In fact, 90% of the population does not know that Eli Lilly.
Exactly. They're like a nameless company that just makes meds, makes money on the back end, right? And like they're not on the news cycle like that. So I would say this is a relatively new experience, right, for Eli Lilly. Dealing with like backlash like this because now people are paying attention like, okay, why is insulin so expensive to begin with, right?
I have something actually really interesting that I kind of just thought of. I almost feel like
you proceed to cut off Momo.
Sorry, I thought
I was done.
I think
you made him wrap up early, but yeah.
I think it's really almost like these pharmaceutical companies don't want their brand to be out there. Like it almost, you know what I mean? It almost seems like these pharmaceutical companies get a lot of backlash from side effects from drugs, from all sorts of drugs, and they know that the patient is really not their consumer. They have to sell to hospitals, they have to sell to pharmacies, they have to sell to all these other places, and so they don't give a crap if the general population knows who they are. People in the space need to know who they are, and they do that with credibility of their drugs and things like that. And so it's really so when you get backlash like this is the worst thing. They don't want the general population to know that Eli Lilly makes insulin. It has no benefit.
Yeah, but I would agree with you, but I think on the flip end, right, with over-the-counter medications where there's easy patient access, that's like Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
I know Johnson & Johnson. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows Johnson & Johnson. And Johnson & Johnson has actually been in quite a few scandals, right, over their history. And I'd say terms of pharmaceutical companies, they're probably the goats at dealing with backlashes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They know. Like Eli Lilly is probably reaching out to some Johnson & Johnson execs like, yo,
How do we
like you
handle
guys
this?
dealt with this before. How do we handle this, right? Johnson & Johnson got in trouble with the poisoning in one of their facilities.
Tylenol.
They got in trouble with their powder causing some cancers, right? They were in a class action lawsuit. They've gotten a lot of trouble over the years, and they come back strong. At this, they're even like they're still around, right? They're actually going to split their company into like 2 or 3 companies, right? One is going to be direct to consumer. One is going to be prescription medications, and one is going to be like powders, all those things, right? They're that good. They're like, you know what? We're going to switch up the names. Johnson & Johnson's been around for too long, associated with too many things, right? They're gonna, they're actually so good at it, right? I feel like this is really, to my knowledge, Eli Lilly's first time in this, and they're just like, look, man, it's not. Look, sorry, misinformation. We don't know what to tell you. If I was somebody on insulin, that response, I'd be like, bro, like do something. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
heat to the pressure. But like they're not. They're obviously not. It affects their bottom line way too much. So it's just interesting to see really the dynamics and the factor that experience plays. Into this, right? I bet you, like for example, talking about last week's episode, Adidas, they're gonna be 100% certain whoever they're getting in deals with is not gonna go crazy. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna make sure whoever they're signing next. All right, man. Like, what's your history about these types of things? What do you feel? They're probably gonna make some signs, some public, a public harmony agreement or something like that. I don't know, things like that. There's gonna be like a lot. They're gonna be thinking about this the next time they move forward, right? So experience really plays like, yeah, like they're gonna be careful who they make deals with. So it's really, I think, experience plays a big part into how, and then the name recognition also plays a big part into how these companies deal with these things. So it's just very interesting to see. I don't think they're gonna do much. They're just gonna hope it quiets down and keep pushing. Keep charging these prices.
Yeah, I think what you highlighted, Mohammed, is an interesting piece is that nowadays, even if you know your target audience is not on social media and you're doing everything to just target those people, there is a possibility because of this open access to information all around, Twitter, Instagram, all this stuff, that, you could be brought to the public and the general population like with Eli Lilly, right? Even if if that's not what you want, right? So now you have to kind of be ready for it. And so in this situation, I think, honestly, the way I think through it is I think I didn't know about that Johnson & Johnson thing, but I think that might be a good way to go about it is the medications that are, just marketing to doctors and stuff like that. You have a specific thing for there, a little bit more general, things. You have a different banner, and then you really get behind the banner of hey, we're trying to make this. We're working to preserve human life, right? That's your motto, or whatever. I don't know what their logo is or their slogan is, but that's basically, if you're in pharma, that's what it should be, right? Ideally, right? And so
it's actually making money. That's really the main purpose. That's our main purpose. We're just trying to make money. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, that's a joke. If you get into enough scandals, you get pretty good at dealing with them. I think that's where Johnson & Johnson's skill set has come into play.
They're goats. They're goated.
Right.
Pharma company scandal handlers.
Yeah, so I mean, what I would do is really on the D2C side is whatever brand you set up there is you double down on the messaging around, hey, this is how we're testing these products. This is how we go through this. And you do a lot of content around that, right? Hey, these are our facilities where we're actually testing this product, XYZ. We use mice to test this. We use this to test that. This is how this works. And I don't know that it's going to, control all your damage that you're getting from this kind of thing, but at least you'll have a little customer facing thing that you can at least point back to, and you have, a brand there that speaks to those people that are looking to preserve life. And then you can at least have a little bit more transparency on that side of things too, where, hey, this percentage goes to this, that, the other thing.
This is Muhammad. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoy this type of content, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really lets us know what type of content that we should be doubling down on. And let us know in the comments, what do you guys think Eli Lilly should do?